right, welcome to the Ultimate Aussie Show here on Game Time Television. I'm Michael J. You see him on the right. That's Red Petty. Good evening, Red. How are you?
Very good. How about you, Michael?
Did. Had a little bit of a power situation this afternoon before the show, but the whole situation is rectified right on time, as we like to say. Welcome to our show. We're going to start showing some graphics here shortly.
Okay.
I'm just working on one of them. Rob is already checked in. I made sure to show his comments today. Um, he says
Yeah,
two.
well, we were talking about this. We were talking about this after the last show, and we should let people know.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
can't see the
all he
comments. You're
said
the
is
host.
two. All he said is two troublemakers.
I know
So
that. No, but what I'm saying is I think it's important that people know you have the comments. I don't, and you choose not to show them. And I think because we had this discussion, I think we've decided we are going to show them if they're not if they're like a jab or some poke, unless you
right.
want to, but more if it's a comment relative to what we're talking about. Then it's interesting to have that comment come in because then you
Yeah.
and I can talk to it because it might be another perspective we haven't thought of. True?
True.
Okay. So that's why I thought it
So
would be a good idea.
yeah. So welcome to our show, everybody. This is the well. I guess it is a um, traditional mid first round show here
Sure.
on Game Time Television. It seems to me we pop on at the beginning of each round and then kind of in the middle, and then the next week seems to be the recap for the first round or whatever round it is, followed by the um, whatever round is coming up. So today we meet you in the middle of the first round. Ironically enough, I got confirmation today from the NHL that if there are game sevens required, which it looks like there could be on multiple fronts, those would happen on Sunday. The next round would start on Monday already. So we're coming at you
Hey, so that
potentially
actually,
between.
yeah, that actually works out well then because on next week's show, we will have every series from the first round done
Yep.
when we do our show. Okay, that's perfect.
So that's good news.
Yeah,
Um, Anyway, so yes, Rob beat us to the top story today. The hot topic of conversation should be the firing of Barry Trotz, and that is in fact where we're going to start. That is our top story, and it's powered by Game Time TV. Visit the website for more. GameTimeTV.ca NHL offseason buzz. Today's top story read the Islanders and Barry Trotz. Wow, you can't even say agreeing to part ways because that's not the way it's worded. The Islanders have fired head coach Barry Trotz
yeah.
with 1 year left on his contract. Um, let's just say I had to do a double take this morning when I got the alert on my phone after waking up, uh, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Um, when we found out that Barry Trotz had been removed as head coach of the New York Islanders. Um, your thoughts, because I was stunned. Um, everybody had kind of talked about, on last week's show, the kind of team that you need, the kind of guy that you need here in Winnipeg is a guy like Barry Trotz if he becomes available, blah, 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 blah. Kind of, I don't want to say hyperbole, but well, the guy that the Jets supposedly want, or at least the fan base wants, is there. Um, your thoughts on the Islanders firing Barry Trotz?
Yeah. Well, if you read, I mean, I read a lot of stuff just this afternoon, a little bit before the show, just on from papers in New York and stuff online, and it sounds like, I mean, they're like exactly like you're saying, they're not saying we're deciding to go in a different direction. It's um, we needed to have a new voice in the locker room. He had a 5 year deal. He's 4 years, so he's fired with 1 year left on his contract. They want to go in a new direction. They had a really lousy. The Islanders had a tough year this year after being a playoff team the last 4 years and making some really significant runs in some of the years that Trotz was head coach there for the last 4 years. This year, their arena wasn't built. They were on the road for like the first, was it 15 games of their season or something? It was just nuts. And then they ran into some COVID stuff, really bad for the Islanders, and then into some injuries to some key players. They lost Jordan Eberle in the expansion draft. I think that hurt them too. So a whole bunch of things kind of happened. And I agree with you. I'm a little bit shocked. There's a part of me that says coaches are hired to be fired. It's surprising. A guy with the standing of Barry Trotz and the pedigree, his track record, you don't think that with 1 year left of contract, you'd give him a chance to turn that around. But look at Maurice. He was here 8 years, almost 9. And he said, oh, my voice is not being listened to. They need a new voice. And here, Trotz is there 4 years. And they say, we need a new voice in the dressing room. After 4 years. Oh my gosh, that to me is a little bit strange. But that being said, he is 69 years old. And I read a whole bunch of stuff today. There's rumors that he may want to coach. He may not want to coach. He may want to get into upper management. He may want to go into consulting and kind of pull back on the grind of being a head coach at age 69. It's a young man's game. Look at the head coaches now in the league. For the most part, there are lots of younger guys, right? There's not many older guys older than 65 years old. And Trotz is 69. So I'm just saying, like, if he's available and he's motivated and he wants to coach the Jets and he's interested, I would put him high on the list for the Winnipeg Jets. But I'm just not sure, as you know, maybe if we had a chance to get Trotz 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it'd be a different story. But I'm not sure that he's maybe even interested from what I've read. And the fact that you hear that means it's not just a rumor, somebody made it up. That's somehow been talked about, or he's shared that before in other interviews. So it'll be interesting to see what the Jets do. But I think that, like we talked about, I think the Jets need to do something uniquely different from Claude Noel and from Paul Maurice. They need new assistant coaches. They need a new head coach to come in and hire assistant coaches. And I think they need to go with more to play a playoff hockey style game throughout the year and play a little bit more like a little bit more defensively, whatever you want to call it, be a little bit grittier, a little bit harder to play against. Still have your talent, but get ready to play that way throughout the year so it's not such a shock to the system that you start now the game is completely different. Because look at the teams that do well in the playoffs. St. Louis, Colorado. I'm just going through here. Washington, Colorado, Dallas. LA is tied with Edmonton. I mean, these are all teams that play a grinder, tough defensive style. The Bruins, right? They play that tough style, hard to play against, and it works in the playoffs. So I just don't think the Jets are going to win in the playoffs. They could be whatever, first place, second place, third place overall team you want. You get into the playoffs, it's harder to score goals. You need to have grinders and you need to get ugly goals and play a simple game where you can win games 2-1. And Barry Trotz is a guy who knows how to win. He did it with Washington. He did it with Nashville. He's done it with the Islanders. He won a cup with Washington, and he could do it with Winnipeg too. So,
yeah, the only other thing, and I'm all for this Barry Trotz to Winnipeg if I don't want to say the stars align, but the things that have to fall into place, roster, money, the whole, everything kind of has to fall together. My question is, how does Barry Trotz, and I'm going to pull this to Winnipeg because I think, that's kind of where everybody else's peak interest is at this point.
yeah.
Where do you see on, but I'm just trying to wonder, like, Barry Trotz is not getting any younger, no offense to Barry. I think he wants to win one more Stanley Cup. I think that's every coach's dream. The question I would have if I'm Barry Trotz is this core as currently constructed going to give me the best chance to win a Stanley Cup. Now, if he wants to win one more Stanley Cup, he's had a lot of family significant issues in the last couple of months personally that have happened.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I didn't know that. Or, like, are we aware of what that
some of
is?
which have been documented publicly, like the death of his mother, which
Okay.
happened in January. So maybe
Okay.
money isn't everything for Barry Trotz, and the possibility of being close to home is an enticing option.
Yeah.
Um, one would have to suggest that money at age where Barry Trotz is at,
69.
might not be the end all be all of a lot of people. Um, yeah, you want to match it on the money while you can, but there comes a point in life where if you're smart, you're kind of set up, if you will, and going for the top dollar at that stage isn't necessarily everything. Uh, but again, where does he see this Jets core? Where does he see the core of whatever team he joins? Um, to me, what the really interesting thing is, it
You've
would
got
be a
internet
team like
issues.
right, a young up and coming team. But again, there's a lot of. I'll say this just to wrap up. Barry Trotz's track record has spoken for itself. He took an average Nashville team when they were an expansion team and made them very, very good at the tail end of his career in Nashville. The Islanders didn't have bona fide stars, and yet they still found their way to the conference final 3 times in the last 4 years. The last 2 times would be Game 7 against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions.
Yep.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is if Barry Trotz wants to work, the work will be there. I just don't know, and I would caution to a lot of people that the interest of a coach or a player wanting to play at home is not for everybody. And just because he's from Manitoba and has that quote unquote connection to the area doesn't necessarily guarantee that next week there's going to be a press conference at Canada Life Center announcing Barry Trotz as the next head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. There's going to be a lot of dynamics that go into this, and I would just caution that yes, he is going to be highly sought after. Yes, should be number one on Shovel Day Off's list of replacement coaches, but it's not going to be easy because it takes two people to make a deal.
Correct. So let's hope. Let's hope. Listen, I don't think they're going to make a mistake. The Jets, honestly, they're going to hire the right person. There's one thing about Cheveldayoff is he doesn't make rash decisions. And Chipman and him together,
Yep.
and Heisinger too. They're longtime hockey guys. They're smart. They're rational. They don't fire somebody willy nilly. They don't hire somebody willy nilly. And when they draft, they develop. When they draft, they scout well before drafting, and then they draft, and then they develop, and then they bring their players in slowly. So everything is methodical. So I guarantee you, even though Trotz is fired today, he could be on the list. Cheveldayoff could be making a whiteboard list in his office of all the names he'd like to talk to of head coaches, but they're not going to do anything in terms of even interviewing, I don't think necessarily until after the season is completely over. Unless they decide, I should say that they may decide to interview certain guys that aren't on playoff teams right now as part of the process. And then if anybody else becomes available after all the games are done, and interview those guys at that point, but they will not announce a new head coach before the draft, or for sure before the end of the season, but I think it'll be even by the draft or something, right at the draft or just before the draft, because they probably would want his input in picks and to be part of that process. For sure, if it's somebody a little bit younger that wants to be there for a longer term, right? So with Trotz, I'm just not sure. 69 years old, like the Jets don't hire guys for 2 years or 3 years, right? They want a guy for 5, 6, 7 years. Does Trotz want to coach till he's 75, 76, 77 years old? I don't know if he does. Maybe he does. I don't think so. But anyway, we'll have to
No,
wait and see.
it's just interesting to me, right? And I'm wondering if going with his assistant coach Lane Lambert might be a better idea. Uh, I spoke to somebody not, recently about Lane Lambert because his name kept popping up as a candidate the last number of years, and this individual
Okay.
that I spoke to compared Lane Lambert to Rob Brendamore. Um, in
Oh,
stature and the way he goes about his daily business as a coach. Um, and then there was also the rumor last week, right after we got off the air, that True North was going to talk or had an interest in, I guess, Randy Carlisle and Scott Arneal. So
oh my gosh.
yeah, I know, and that set this market off, to say the very least. Uh, one thing about Winnipeg is I'm gonna say this in as polite a terms as I can. There's certain um, there's a certain segment of the population and of the fan base that gets triggered by certain events. Let's just say the fan base, for the most part, was triggered by that reporting last week. So, the Jets rumor mill will continue to swirl. There
Yep.
is one other thing that I wanted to talk about with you quickly before we get to the coaches, or sorry, before we get to the playoffs, and that is it was clarified on Saturday night by Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts Hockey Night in Canada segment that it
Mhm.
is his understanding that Mark Shifley has not asked for a trade from the Winnipeg Jets. And Elliot Friedman did on today's 32 Thoughts, the podcast, expand on that. I have not heard the context of that conversation, so I'm not fair. I'm not going to make a judgment based on what I heard on the podcast because I haven't heard it yet. Um, but no, I just think it's interesting. What do you think of that whole idea of Mark Shifley not asking for a trade? And if he doesn't get traded, how is it difficult to walk back into the room knowing what you said at your post-game media availability in Game 82, and it would appear like Paul Stasny, among others, have used their not so cryptic sense in the media to call out number 55 without calling him by name. So I guess my question is, Shifley hasn't asked for a trade, but I'm wondering, are we almost at the point of no return with this situation, or does time fix things?
Well, sure. But what did he say? He said, I am concerned about my future. I'm in my prime. I'm a good player, always wanting to improve. Do you want to be a Winnipeg Jet? Or what? And he says, well, I want to know what's going on. I want to know for my future and my career and how I fit into the Jets' plans, what we're doing, where we're going, which means what style of play are we going to play? Who's going to be the head coach? Are we planning to win in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, do we want, like, if this is another rebuild, I think he would say, I'm not interested. If we're going to go young again, then you can trade me. But he didn't say that. He just said, I want to know. And so what happened? Cheveldayoff sat down with him and they talked. And Cheveldayoff probably told him and said, appreciate your comments, Mark. We want to win. We still have a great core here, which includes you. We're going to add to that. We're going to redo. We thought we had a good team this year. It didn't work out, but we're going to retool. We're not going to leave it as is. We're going to bring in a new coach and somebody with credibility and somebody who will want veteran players like yourself on the team. And we value having you, Pierre-Luc, and Adam Lowry down the middle as our 1-2-3 centerman. That makes us very formidable. And we've got a great core group of players. That's what he's going to tell him. And so then Mark Scheifele comes back and says, you know what? I don't want to be traded. That I'm not going to ask for trade. That's what he wanted to know, is that I'm still a part of this and I don't want to be another 10-year plan and be like Claude Giroux. I think that's what these guys look at. They look at guys like Claude Giroux that played for an organization for 16, 17 years. They're 37, 38 years old, and they've never won a Stanley Cup. and they keep going through a rebuild and then a rebuild, and then they move out some players and move in. Look at Claude Giroux was there in Philadelphia for years, and everybody got moved in and out in terms of Patrick and Voracek and Voracek or whatever, and all these guys, and the defenseman there, and it was just always revolving door. But Claude Giroux stayed, and I think Mark Scheifele looks at that and says, I don't want to go through that and then be at the end of my career and an old man, and now I got to look for a place that I can go with maybe one last chance to win a Stanley Cup. So I think the Jets are going to do it right. They want to keep Scheifele. They don't want to trade. It'll be interesting to see, though, because I won't say that they won't trade Scheifele. I just think I have a hard time believing they're going to trade Scheifele because he is under contract for 2 more years at a really good price, and he's a top 10 player when he's healthy and when he's motivated. So I just can't see him trading. I can't see them trading him, but they might trade somebody else of value in order to get something valuable in return, specifically a number 1 pairing defenseman to play with Josh Morrissey, unless that's going to be Ryan Sandberg, which could potentially be. But I don't know. I just don't think that it's a problem with what Mark Scheifele said. Players say stuff, and you're inferring. See, this is the problem: is that we're not cryptic. We can't read between the lines. I wish I could. Who are they talking about when they say there's a problem in the dressing room? Who are they talking about when they say there's no accountability for some players? Who are they talking about when they say some guys are not prepared for games? Who is that? You know, when they said that when Mark Scheifele was injured. So it has nothing to do with Mark Scheifele, because that was after a game that they lost, and they said there were multiple guys that said, we're not ready to play. There's guys in this room that aren't being held accountable and aren't ready to play and aren't prepared. Well, it's not Scheifele. He's in the press box. But
yeah,
but it could be, but I was going to say this. It could be, and this is something that I would think about, is it could be that they have, like, similar to what they did in LA with the Dustin Brown, similar to what they've done in other places where the captain has gotten older. It may be time to retool with a new head coach the entire in writing leadership group of the team. So maybe somebody else has to be captain. Maybe Adam Lowry should be captain. That's who I would make as captain. Never mind Scheifele. Put Adam Lowry as captain.
Where are you on the Pierre-Luc Dubois?
And put Pierre-Luc Dubois and Josh Morrissey as the assistant captains. Because I think Scheifele and Wheeler, the problem is, I think they need a wake-up call. They were 1-2 in the worst minus on the team. Scheifele was a defensive liability all year, and he's on the number 1 line. And yeah, he scored goals. He scored a point a game, but he was minus 30 or minus 35. He let in 35 more goals at even play than when he scored. Then his line scored. So he's not playing well enough. And so maybe Scheifele and Wheeler need to have the leadership mantle taken off of them. They can just focus on their game and their play and let Lowry, Morrissey, and Dubois handle that.
Maybe. I'm starting to kind of see that transformation as far as who comes out of the locker room after certain losses. It's not Blake Wheeler. It's not Mark Scheifele. It's not Josh Morrissey. And you know what? Morrissey, I think, could be forgiven if he's the forgotten leader in that kind of scenario.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting, right? Certain cores need to be in transition at a certain period of time. Let's quickly get to the playoffs here.
Okay.
I want to get through this in about a half an hour. But that series I quickly want to talk about is the one that's kind of surprising, but kind of not. The Washington Capitals leading the Florida Panthers 2-1 with Game 4 tonight at 6:30. Wow. Maybe we shouldn't really be surprised because, Washington is Washington and they've won the cup. But to me, it's like Washington's taken away, has taken away the middle of the ice and Florida's transition game. and it's like Florida's trying to revert to a game plan B, but has yet to find it.
Yep.
Um, where are we here with Florida potentially going to be facing elimination if they lose tonight? Are you surprised it's 2-1 Washington?
Did we not? Wasn't this part of our talk last week? Was that we picked our teams and then I said, and you nodded in agreement, is that I could have picked the other team with the exact same number of games in
Yep.
winning, and it could have very easily, especially in the East with how every team is above 100 points. So I agree with you. I'm not shocked. I mean, I still think Florida's going to win, and I'm still leaning on Florida. And I think they're going to play way better tonight, and they're going to tie up this series going home. So I think it's going to be 2-2 after tonight. But Washington, veteran team, they've won the cup. They're big, they're nasty. They play really well defensively. Like you say, they play a structure. They make it hard for Florida to wheel and deal. That's how they won their games. They outscore teams, and they don't, that ice is not available like it used to be. So Florida's going to have to find ways to win like they didn't win during the regular season. That's the problem. It's like the Jets, right? You win a certain way, a certain style of play. Now you get the playoffs and it's completely different. It's like, oh, how do you win that way? How do you play that way? And that's the problem. You have to be able to play that way during the regular season. So it's not a shock to the system when you get into the playoffs. And I think Florida is really struggling with that now. But the other side is I think they have too much talent. And I think they're still going to come out tonight and they might win. Maybe it's 3-1 with an empty netter, but they're still going to play way better and outshoot and outchance Washington tonight. That's my prediction. How about you?
Well, I'll give you my thought, but I just had a question pop into my head here while you're talking. Um, why is playoff hockey so different stylistically than in the regular season? Like, is there a simple A plus explanation for it? Because it's like, well, we play one way to get ourselves in the playoffs, and then we have to adjust once we get there. Uh, for a playoff style of game, why does the style of gameplay change? Is it the desperation of the teams doing what they can to prevent the other team to the best of their ability from beating them 4 out of 7? Or like how do you see that? Because we've seen Florida run and gun, and we've seen Florida defend for 82 games. Now all of a sudden through 3 games it's like they've had trouble. Is it just as simple as getting in and then you can focus 4 games out of 7 instead of the marathon that is the 82 game season? Or how do
Yeah.
you see that? Like, because I'm just trying to figure out stylistically how it's so different from what we've seen in the first 4 months versus potentially your season going down the drain in 2 weeks.
You hit it on the head. I think there's a little bit of it is the other factor, which I think the game is reffed a little bit differently. They still call ticky tack penalties and little things like the game last night between, oh, who was it? It was I think it was Tampa Bay and Toronto. I was watching stuff that was called even in the first and second period. Then they stopped calling it in the third period subs, and even worse, and guys shoving and gloves in the face and all this crap after the whistle, and they let it go and they let it go, and it was bad. And so I think the NHL they let stuff go more. They ref it a little bit different. They'll still call penalties ticky tack, but they let a little bit more interference go, a little bit more hooking go. Not so much in the hands because that's obvious, but hooking around the body. They let shoving and gloves in the face after the whistle. They normally send 2 guys off for roughing. They don't do that necessarily anymore. So that's part of it. That's a small part. But the bigger part, I agree with you, is the intensity ramps up. And you can be a team like getting yourself all geeked up for 82 games. It's hard. I played long seasons of sports and I know exactly how this is. And when you're the team now, that's the first place team playing the fourth place team or whatever your matchup is. So the lower ranked team, the fourth place team, they get into playoffs, but they say, listen, we're in the same as the other team. We can now ramp it up. The season's behind us. All we got to do is win every check, every loose ball, whatever the scenario is, for whatever the sport is, and we can win game by game or win period by period or win check or shift by shift, period by period, game by game. It's a cliche, but it's true. And so guys just give everything, every shift, every inch of ice is fought for, every loose puck, nothing is given away. Whereas in the regular season, guys might, and they'll just skate to the bench and not a big deal. I don't try to. That never happens in the playoffs. So that's why games get tighter. Everything is more intense. And that's why it's just way different. And that's why you have upsets, because if you said it's part of the regular season and it's a 7-game series and you let them know after the 7-game series was over, so you didn't tell the teams, it would turn out very differently than, oh, this is for you to move on for the playoffs. So it's the intensity, and it's the chance for a team that is not as good, or I say not as good, that did not have as good a season, having a chance to make up for their whole season by just playing well in a really small window of time. That's
But again, in the same sense, you also have to play well in the big window to get to the small window.
right. But that's all you got to do.
So
Just enough to get in.
it's a juggling act, right? You get into 82 and then, you get into this best of 7 mini game for 2 weeks and, you basically know each other at the back of your hand. All right, everybody, welcome back. We have had power failures here at Might FM Control. We will be right back with the show here as we get everything situated. We've had power failure here at the studio. We'll be right back to talk about that and more when we come back to the show. Just give me 35 seconds here. We'll talk about that when we come back here on Game Time. right, welcome back. Ultimate Hockey Show. Michael Dale waiting for the return of Brett Petty. Well, there's only one way for me to explain this, and that is to explain what happened. Goodness gracious, we have had rolling power outages here all day long, and the system decided to go poof on us right in the middle of the show. So we'll get this connection reestablished here. Red Petty had just left I can't even see him right now. But that's okay. We will figure it out here as we go along. Welcome back. We're going to send things back to music here. I had him in the background until, there he comes back. Okay, I think we're ready to rock here again. Yeah, so we had rolling power outages here out of town all day, and my biggest fear, Rhett, I sent you an email saying, oh boy, I hope we don't get power outages, but boop, it happened, and that's the way she does with technology. I will not be filing any complaints to Manitoba Hydro for sure.
It's a waste of time. Don't bother.
But no, for here at the Manitoba Mothership, it takes a while for once the power comes back on to get our internet back. Because it's satellite dish above the complex, which connects our internet. So
Right.
once that satellite dish reconnects itself, then we're good to go for now. So thank you for waiting it out. Apparently, when the blue screen, our pictures disappeared. And in the words of Rob, who actually texted me, he said, "You guys are talking," and then it went poop. And I said, "Yep, that's the power outage."
That's
So,
power. Yep.
Rhett, we'll keep this show going till about 6:10 if that's okay.
Okay.
Since we lost time with the power outage, you were saying Florida and Washington. We kind of dissected that
Yep.
series. 2-1. Quick thought: what did Washington have to do tonight on home ice? They won the first game. Game 3 at home, 6-1. What do they need to do? And then in the inverse, how does Florida get back to their game?
Florida or Washington needs to do the same thing, and Florida needs to play better. Like that, it's a cliche, but Florida seemed to give up after they were down 3-1. It just seemed like they just gave up and made it easier and easier for Washington to play. So Florida, they have to play with speed, and you can beat that defensive style if you pass crisply, and you work the puck up and you move your feet and you take quick shifts and you roll 4 lines as Florida can. You can beat Washington. They did it in game 2. They can do it. So and if they're moving their feet, like I agree with the commentary that's come in, if you're moving your feet, then you're forcing penalties. You're forcing Washington to take penalties. And I just think Florida, they have to play quicker. It's not necessarily they have to slow down to be better in tune with each other. They have to play a quicker game, which means making quicker decisions, passing the puck quicker. You're not going to lug the puck through 5 guys as one guy through the neutral zone. You're just not going to do that against Washington. So, and if you want to play the dump and chase game, you can try, but it's hard to play it against Washington. So they got to play quicker. Now, if they do that, and I think they will do that, they're going to play way better. They're going to win. Washington has to play their same style, but I just don't think tonight. I think Florida has too much talent. They're going to wake up. Their veterans are going to wake up, and they're going to call on their guys, and they're going to play way better tonight, just like Tampa did against the Leafs after being down 2-1.
Yeah, we'll get to that series right now. Actually,
Okay.
it is Toronto Tampa series tied 2-2, game 4 tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Rick, what have you seen in this series? And I'm gonna get you to just quickly talk and recap the series so far. I just have to check one more thing in regards to our connection, if that's all right.
It's been amazing. It's been 4 games, and they've literally been 2 different games or 2 different. The games that Toronto won, Toronto has been by far the better team, and they've dominated. They've pushed their will on Tampa, and when Tampa's won, they've dominated. They've scored early. Their power play has worked well, and they've imposed their will on Toronto. So you and I have both thought the series was going to go 7 games. You are actually picking Tampa Bay, and I'm picking Toronto. But this has been a great series. I think one of the best series so far in the first round. There with Carolina and Boston, and with the Pittsburgh and New York. It's been very entertaining and very good hockey, like very, very good hockey to watch. Not necessarily playoff hockey, but still very entertaining. The stars have played, the stars have scored. The power plays have looked really dynamite in the games they've won for each team. So it's a toss-up now. So tomorrow they're going back to Toronto, and I could see Toronto winning at home just because they're going to have the crowd behind them and they're going to bounce back, because it's been each team has won every second night. So it's Toronto's turn to win. So are you on mute?
That's better. What do you make of the momentum switches in this series? One team wins by 5, and next night the other team comes, and wins by 3. And next night, a win by 3. Last night, a win by 5 with a couple empty netters.
Yeah. Each team is talented. Like, that's the problem, is that if you don't come ready to play, the other team in the series is going to embarrass you. Like, I just don't know. Like, I know it's playoff hockey and it's 2 very talented teams, but how you can be slow out of the gate and just not ready to play, like Toronto was last night against Tampa, it surprises me. But maybe they're tired. Maybe they spent far too much time in the Florida sun, not enough time thinking about their game. I don't know. But it just shows you these 2 teams are very talented, and whichever team is allowed to impose their will and their talented players to show their talent and score either on 5-on-5 or on the power play, that's the team that's going to win, because both goalies have been amazing and both goalies have looked average. And both power plays have looked fantastic, and other days the power plays for each team has looked meh. So I agree with you. It's been up and down roller coaster, and that's why you're seeing 5-1 one night one way, 6-1 the other team the other night, just huge swings like that.
So I did hit on my Leafs for just a moment.
Please do.
Because I've been stewing on this since the end of the game last night. I'm just blown away, Rick, that you can win a game in Tampa, go up 2-1. Okay?
Yeah.
And then you can have a game like last night where you have a chance to put the defending 2-time Stanley Cup champions on the ropes in their own building coming home. And you come out with that kind of performance. One that puts you down 3-0 in the first 9 minutes of the game. You're really not even in the game. I think the score was flattering for how Toronto played. The fact that it was 5-2 in the third period was just a minor miracle in itself. Tampa could have really, really, really done really, really bad. Tampa got 2 empty netters. Willie Nylander, nice to see you score 2 goals that should have come earlier. I'm just befuddled and I'm confused that you have a chance to put the 2-time defending champs on the ropes.
But they're the 2-time defending champs. They're a good team.
And you come out with a performance like that. I can understand and I can accept, okay, you lose 2-1 in double overtime. What I can accept from the Leafs is what we saw last night. And I don't know if that's preparation. I don't know. And then we can get to the media question about asking how you put Justin Hall in the lineup over Timothy Liljegren. To me, Sheldon Keefe did not have the Leafs prepared, and it cost them in the first 10 minutes. And they better have an answer tomorrow, because if they lose tomorrow at home, good night. They're not winning the series in 7.
They're playing at home. They'll play much better. Why are you shocked that the Leafs are 2-2? You and I both picked each team to win in 7 games, which means the other team
I know
has to
that,
win
but
3.
I'm just befuddled. But Like, I can accept. Okay, I'm sorry this bothers me so much. You
Get
had
over
a
it.
chance to go up 3-1 on the two-time defending champs, and you come out like that.
Yeah,
It's
but the other
frustrating.
team is the defending champs. They're going to impose their will as well. You have another team that's just as talented.
What did they say after game one? Oh yeah, Tampa didn't push back. Tampa didn't push back. To me, it's just I don't want to discredit what Tampa's done, but to me, you had to have a better effort than last night. I know they will bounce back tomorrow. They better bounce back tomorrow. Oh boy, it's just yeah. I don't know.
They
My
will play better. They will play better. The series is going to go 7 games. You and I you both believe it. And there
I'm
it's
still
going to
sitting
be,
here a week later in shock that you took the Leafs. So Diamond has openly
I
admitted, but
told
he
you.
did not like the Toronto Maple Leafs.
This is how I did it. I went like this. And then I picked the Leafs logo and put it on the thing. So it's
That's
listen,
funny.
the series is what it is. It's tied 2-2 after 4 games. You and I both think it's going to go 7 games. What are we talking about here? It is what it is. They're two very talented teams.
Yeah.
I could see them each going winning at home and then going home tied 3-3. The Leafs play and the game goes into overtime and the Leafs win it in overtime. I could see that happening. That's how
Yeah.
evenly matched these teams are. So
Yeah, that'll
let's
make
move
me
on. I'm
happy.
done talking with the Leafs. Enough of that. Let's go on. Rob
Well,
says they're
let's talk
back.
about
I
another
don't
team
believe
that
it.
looked to be in total control through 2 games, and it seemed like the scene set kind of shifted
Yeah.
the
And then they
home
had to go
side.
back to Boston.
Um, what is it? I mean, like we talked about the record that teams have when scoring first and all that kind of stuff, and then being the home team. But this to me is what makes the Stanley Cup playoffs so interesting. You can have two lopsided games for lots of disrespect to the Boston Bruins and Carolina. Those games were not close. And if it, oh, you know what? They're going to split the 2 games. And it could be 3-1, Carolina going back home, and they're going to finish off. But no, Brad Marchand had other ideas. He took his team on his back last night and made sure that series was going back to Carolina 2-2. Surprised? What gives? Why is the home team having so much success in this series particularly?
The thing is, again, these two teams are evenly matched, but they're evenly matched for different reasons, not like Toronto and Tampa Bay. They both play a defensive playoff style of game. And I agree. We got some comments coming in. All the series could go 7, except for Colorado and Nashville, and I agree. Well, it's the only one that could actually go 4-0. But look at how those teams win. Like I know you can win when you're on the road when you play a defensive style, but Carolina, the way that they play, it's exhausting, and you've got to bring lots of energy to play against them because they play that sort of a defensive style and they pressure, they make it hard to, just like Washington, hard to skate through the middle. And so you've got to play a patient game, make quick decisions, move the puck quick, move your feet, get on the ice, off the ice in less than 45-second shifts. Everything has to be quick, a quick game, not fast necessarily, but quick everything. And the Bruins looked slow against Carolina the first 2 games on the road. They go back to Boston, they get the crowd behind them, and they play that Bruins style, mucking and grinding and banging in the corners and digging out pucks. And there you go. Now the series is tied. You think this is going to go 7? I'm still thinking it might go 6, and Carolina might win the next 2 and win on the road in Boston. But it could very easily go 7 games, just like Tampa Bay, Toronto, and 2 very evenly matched teams. I didn't think it at the beginning. I thought Carolina had way too much talent, but boy, the Bruins just completely proved me wrong after these last 2 games. How about you?
Well, to me, I have to wonder if it's the goaltending switch. Jeremy Swayman 2-0 in the series. They're at home. To me, the Bruins are finding some scoring, and maybe it might be Carolina's goaltending starting to crack. Because remember, they're on their third, string goaltender. Now you have some tape on this goalie. He's on the road. You know how rabid those Boston fans are from when Vancouver was there in 2011, I think it was.
Yep.
Um, yeah, to me, I'm just surprised, but it's been that, but maybe we shouldn't be. No, I think it to be a really good series. That series resumes tomorrow from Raleigh. So
Yep.
the Caniacs are going to be out in full force tomorrow. A game that gets underway right now, actually, in just a few minutes. The PBG Paints Arena playing host to Game 4 between the Penguins and the Rangers. This one is interesting, Rick, because the Pittsburgh winning that triple overtime thriller. I think we could use the term. Shesterkin and Casey DeSmith started Game 1. Well, we find out that Casey DeSmith has to leave in the middle. I think it was a double overtime. For what we thought at the time was cramps. We find out the next day that is a core muscle injury, and Louis Domingue is now the number one goaltender. I have yet to hear if Tristan Jarry will be back for game number 4 tomorrow. I don't know for sure, but the Penguins winning 7-4 despite blowing a 4-1 lead. Um, this to me, Red, throw it in the blender, see what comes out.
Yeah.
7 games all over this one, too.
You should update the byline at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. But you're right. Who would have thought Pittsburgh? Everyone was leaning so heavily on the Rangers, and then not just how the Rangers were all year, but exactly like their goaltending was settled with Shesterkin. They got Andrew Kopp. They got, who else did they get at the deadline? The defenseman. A Braun. They got Justin Braun. They added some nice pieces right before the deadline, and people said, the Rangers, they're going to make quick work of the Penguins. And look at that, the Penguins, veteran guys, a lot of UFAs coming up. This is their chance. It's hard to beat veterans. Veterans know what it takes. The Penguins have been there. They've won the cup before. A lot of those guys are part of that core, and so. Is it surprising? A little bit, but Pittsburgh is a good team. And now it's kind of interesting because now the Rangers are playing game 4 tonight, right now, in Pittsburgh, and they got to come up with a big game to draw this thing even. Otherwise, they're going to be in big trouble because they're going to be down 2-1 or 3-1, having to win 3 straight, which is not easy to do at any time, especially in the playoffs. So I think this is a must win for the Rangers. Most times they say game 4 is the biggest game. It's the game that causes a series to go one way or the other. It's the most the crucial game to win, no matter what the situation is in the series. It's game 4. So I think this is absolutely a must game win for Rangers. I think they're going to play better, but I don't know that somebody on that team has to rise up besides Kreider. Somebody has to be a veteran there and move that team along. Who are their leaders? Is it Fox? Is it Trouba? Is it Benajad? Is it Panarin? I don't know. Somebody's got to step up and they got to rise to the occasion.
Couple of things here. Rob's touching on Ilya Shesterkin. He says Shesterkin seems rattled. Where do you sit on the Ranger goaltending?
Yeah, could be. This is his first playoff. Or this is the first time he's gotten his playoff feet wet. So maybe.
I'll answer this. We saw a goalie not have playoff success by the name of Sergei Bobrovsky for the longest time. So at least Shesterkin's not Sergei Bobrovsky. No pun intended on Bobrovsky, whose team is currently trailing 2-1. The other thing, Rich, I wanted to touch on really quickly. Is there something to this? The Pittsburgh Penguins know that it very well could be the last goal with this round of players. And is there some motivation to run it back one more time?
Sure. I think that could be part of it. I mean, I'm not in the heads of guys like Malkin and Crosby and Letang, maybe even Jake Gensel you could throw in there, and some other guys, maybe Dumoulin. But I'm just saying that is it that it's their last swan song, or is it the guys even playing for next year? Like Letang, if he's not signed by Pittsburgh, like if Pittsburgh wants to walk away from him, and Letang has this amazing playoff, and he takes Pittsburgh, or he's part of, I should say, takes Pittsburgh. He's part of the Penguins going to the conference final, even to the Stanley Cup final. Like, what does that say for next year for Letang? And he's a huge part of that, and he scores a lot of points, and he's part of the success. Whether Pittsburgh wants to sign him, maybe at that point the Penguins, even if they wanted to, they couldn't afford him. If he goes somewhere else, he's going to be able to write his own ticket at age 35. A lot of guys are looking as their career kind of petering out. And Letang, if he plays well and the Penguins go, I mean, same thing with Malkin. They can rewrite their contracts for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of motivation for Pittsburgh to play well, not just to win, and they got a lot of pride. Don't ever underestimate the pride of veteran guys, especially when everybody starts looking at the Rangers. Oh, they're the hot commodity, right? They're the team on the rise and blah, blah, and the Ranger. And then the Penguins say, you know what? We're happy to fly under the radar, but they're veteran guys. They have a lot of pride. They know how to play. They know how to win, especially in the playoffs. They've done it before, this core group of guys. So even though I picked, as you did, picked the Rangers to win this series, is it surprising to me that the Penguins are giving the Rangers all that they can handle? Nope. Just like we said, any of those 8 teams could win. Any of them.
Where do you go from here if you're the New York Rangers?
Keep playing. Keep playing your game. They have to and they have to play a little bit better defensively. I think they're not making it hard enough for Pittsburgh to, I think the Rangers, they're a good team. Gerard Gallant is a good coach. They play a good system, but they've fallen away from their system a bunch of times, like to let 5, 6, 7 goals get scored against them in a couple of games. Like there's like defensively, guys are cheating or they're taking the easy way out or something. I think the Rangers have to get back to their style of play that gave them so much success during the regular season, which was putting pressure on the other team, forechecking, and rolling those 4 lines and making it really hard for the other team to score. Like I just always find in the playoffs, I know this from playing in a number of sports, in the playoffs, you can generate offense enough to win when you focus on the defense first. So playing defense and playing well in your own end, you turn pucks over, you forecheck, you turn pucks over. That's all on the defensive side. You're working, you push on the other team, you turn the puck over, boom, you score. So I think that's what the Rangers need to do, is they need to push their will on the Penguins and force turnovers and do that sort of thing in order for them to have success. Because they just kind of lay back and roly-poly and go through it. I think Pittsburgh is going to do to them exactly what they did to them 2 nights ago. So, and they're going to be in trouble. If the Rangers go down 3-1 going back to New York, to me, it's over, because I don't think you can beat Pittsburgh 3 games in a row, in my opinion. But how about you? We may have lost Michael. That's
okay. Sorry, I'm bad. I had technical difficulties for the moment.
I think we've beaten New York and Pittsburgh to death. It's going to be a great game tonight. Tune in and watch, because it'll be good hockey. Yeah, Colorado, Nashville. Are we surprised?
Colorado, Nashville, 3 games tonight on that game. 4 is tonight, 8:30. Are you surprised Nashville down 3-0?
I just asked you that question. Are you surprised?
Oh, am I surprised? No. Colorado's good.
You need the byline.
Yeah.
You need the byline.
That's what I'm trying to fix, and I think that's where the difficulty came in.
I think
I'm going to put the bar up here in a second. No, I'm not surprised. You always have that one game where it's like that team has a chance. That was that overtime. I think it was game 2. Nashville seems to have found something with Connor Ingram. But ladies and gentlemen, with Cale Makar running around like that as a defenseman, playing like he's a forward. The only question I have is the Avalanche goaltending. I'm not sold on Dusty Temper and Pavel Francouz, but it's going to be good enough to get them through this series, whether it's tonight or in Game 5.
Listen, can I tell you something? Just think about this. Nashville was one of the teams that the Jets were chasing in order to get one of those wild card positions, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? If the Jets were here up against Colorado, it would be 3-0, and each game would have been 7-1 or 8-1. It would, like, Nashville is a good team. They are a much, much better team this year than Winnipeg, and they're down 3-0 to Colorado. And they've played well. It's not like they've played awfully. They've had some bad bounces and bad breaks. They made some mistakes. Colorado's power play is playing unbelievably. But I'm just saying, they're a good team, Nashville, and Colorado's making hay of them, which tells you how good a team Colorado is. In my opinion, that's what it is. It's just Colorado is too good a team. I just think that, like, Colorado and Calgary, even though Calgary's down, we'll get to them, down 2-1. I think Calgary and Colorado are the class of the West, and everybody else is a wannabe. And
yeah, it's
so,
interesting. We won't have the bars for the rest of the show here unless
okay.
I can get them figured out. Oh, here it is. I got it now. I just got to update it. The next series we're talking about St. Louis
Wait,
and
just wait before we go. Do you think Nashville's going to win at home and to push the game?
no, I think it's done tonight.
You think it's done time? Okay.
Avalanche are just too good.
Okay. Okay. St. Louis and Minnesota. Again, are you shocked by this? You and I both picked the series to go 7. You picked Mini. I picked St. Louis. And look, after 4 games, it's tied 2-2. Are you surprised by this? I'm
No,
not. These two teams are another 2 playoff style teams, evenly matched, play well defensively. One wins one at home and loses one at home. The other team wins one at home, loses one at home. It's bing bang, back and forth, tight games, defensive structures in place. Not always the most exciting hockey to watch. I think that would be my last choice of all the games that I've been watching. If there's a choice of any other game besides this game, I choose it, or I just choose not to watch because the hockey is not as great, I just find. But that's just me. I mean, if I was a Minnesota fan or St. Louis fan, I think I'd watch just because it's my hometown team or my team. But still, two playoff style teams that are going to grind it out. And I agree with you, just like you and I think this is going to go 7 games. And in game 7, it could be a tie. It could be 1-1 going into the third period, 5 minutes or even 5 minutes left in the third period in game 7, and you still don't know how it's going to play out. So
yeah, to me, that was my line of thinking when I said Minnesota in 7. I just like Marc-Andre Fleury in a one-off scenario, Game 7. We've already seen St. Louis use both their goaltenders. Billy Husso played the first 3 games. And then Jordan Binnington came in yesterday, got the win. Looked very good doing so, especially in the first period. The championship pedigree to me of St. Louis is still there. Have to see what happens with that team in the future. But for right now, I believe it's going to be a 7-game series. And like you said, either way, I do not expect Billy Husso to see the crease the rest of the series, barring injury. I think this is Binnington's series to finish. Last 2 series quickly, which we're going to talk about, is the Pacific Division. Dallas leading Calgary 2-1. Your thoughts on this series with Game 4 tonight in Big D?
this has been another. Well, we both picked. Okay, first of all, what were you thinking picking Calgary in 4? Were you talking to your uncle? Is that what it was? Were you
Yeah.
getting influence from your uncle? Yeah. Okay. Well, already you can't win this series. You could still win that Calgary wins, but again, Dallas, veteran guys, right? It's like Washington, it's like Pittsburgh. The team is on the outside. It's a wild card team. They get into the playoffs. They get against the number 2 seed, and everybody says, Dallas, they don't have a chance. suddenly, they just rope-a-dope and play defensively. Joe Pavelski is having a coming of age at 37. He's been the most valuable player. I'm surprised Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin have kind of taken a back seat here. And Pavelski and some of the other guys have been really prominent in the Dallas being up 2-1. I still think now game 4 is tonight. It's the late game, I believe. Yeah. And it's in Dallas. And I think Calgary is going to come out much, much better. Daryl Sutter will not let his team put in another game and another effort like they did 2 nights ago. And I think Calgary wins tonight and evens it up at 2. But this has been another really good series. Good hockey, tough, physical, a little bit dirty at times, animosity running through the veins of guys after the whistle. Very exciting playoff hockey to watch. I love it. I mean, I don't like the dirty stuff, but I like the roughhousing after the whistle a little bit and the gloves in the face. That stuff I like. So
yeah, to me, here's the thing, Rick. Matthew Tkachuk has spent way too much time in the penalty box, consuming himself with John Klingberg. He's a 40-goal scorer, okay?
Yeah.
They're making Joe Pavelski look like he's some kind of 35-goal scorer.
They're making him look like a 25-year-old Joe Pavelski. That's what they're doing.
Elias Lindholm, like these guys have 40 goals. Yes, Jacob Markstrom maybe had a down series, but somebody has to take the puck to the net and make Jake Ottinger work. He's not getting to the front of the net. Everything is to the outside. It starts with Matthew Tkachuk, and instead of going after John Klingberg and spending 5 minutes in the penalty box, why don't you take your frustration to the front of the net? Because we're seeing the same old movie from Calgary that we saw 3 years ago in this series. And talking to people in Calgary today, it's going to be a 5-alarm fire if they come home down 3-1. Because there's a lot of the fan base in Calgary saying, oh no, here we go again. And it's only 2-1. And these have been 3 very close games.
Michael, Calgary will win tonight.
I hope so.
No, I don't. Hope is not a strategy. Calgary will win tonight. They will play
better because they are the better team, but they're just not playing like
they will play better. And I should say that I'm not going to guarantee a win because I'm not like that because I don't play for Calgary and I have no influence on the game. But they will play much better. And even if they lose, it'll be a close game or in overtime. But I agree with you. Tkachuk needs to start worrying about scoring goals and about he and his line mates being the dominant line in hockey. You could argue with Landeskog, Rantanen, and McKinnon. Otherwise, those 3 guys have been as dominant as any line all year, plus minus wise, scoring, everything else. They got to go back to playing the way they play and not worry about roughhousing and worrying about all this other junk and nonsense after the whistle. Focus on the game, and Sutter's going to tell them that, and they're going to play way better tonight. Mark my words. Watch that game tonight. It'll be very good. It's game 4.
Hopefully, Calgary runs them out of the building. Because I've been through due for one of those. The other team, I don't have nearly the concerns with Edmonton as I did with Calgary. That series is best of 3, tied 2-2. Game 5 at Rogers tomorrow. What have you seen from the LA Kings? Because we're seeing prototypical LA Kings hockey here, and the Oilers kind of being frustrated out of their own game. To me, last night was a one-off for Edmonton after literally running up the score the last 2 games. It's Jonathan Quick being vintage Jonathan Quick, or there's nothing here. Is it that simple?
Jonathan Quick is part of it, but I agree. LA plays that sort of a greasy, like they bang, they make it hard. Darnell Nurse, you want him to play 30 minutes. Well, he's going to get hit a lot. By the third period, he's going to be a tired man because they hit him all the time. And they forecheck, they grind the puck, they cycle, they're physical. They play well defensively, LA. And if they get some saves from Quick on the power play where they're playing against Edmonton, when Edmonton has a power play, and they hang in there, they don't take too many penalties. LA can make it very frustrating for Edmonton. And so you and I both picked Edmonton to win, me in 7, you in 6. So what does that tell you? From my perspective, I knew LA was going to win 3 games. And this is how they win their 3 games. Edmonton has more talent, more um, just more skill, is the better team on paper and in the standings, but that doesn't always play out in winning. And so you got to give credit to LA. LA has done amazing to win 2 out of the first 4 games in the series. But Edmonton, I think coming home, they're going to bounce back and they're going to have a big monster game tomorrow night. So I still see Edmonton winning the series, although as you know, I am an LA Kings fan. I always have been. And they're a good hockey team. They're a playoff team, just like we talked about, like the Kings, Dallas, Minnesota, St. Louis, Boston, Washington. Like they're just those, Carolina, even to some extent. They're grinding. They're tough. They play well defensively. They make it hard for you to get space on the ice. Your superstars got to work to get open. It's not as easy to score. So you got to have guys that are determined to rise above. And sometimes Edmonton guys, sometimes McDavid and Draisaitl have done it, and sometimes they haven't. And I think that's the difference. How about for you? You think Edmonton is like going to win the series still?
Yeah, I think Edmonton to win the series in
You're
7.
frozen.
I think the home teams win the rest of the way. Um, One thing that's really
Okay.
amazing about LA is they have high shot volumes in this series. Every game, I think, except for one, has been over 40 shots for the Kings. Now, a lot of that could be from the outside. They're one of those teams that seems to like to filter everything to the net. So, LA has nothing to
Yeah.
lose here. Everything is riding on the Oilers here the next, 6 days. And if you're the Oilers, you hope it's 4 days. Uh, they're playing with house money. They're a year ahead of where I thought they would be. I think if you
Yep.
looked at our preseason poll, I didn't have them in the playoffs. LA was one of those teams where, you had them out of the playoffs, but they made the playoffs with that one surprise team. There's a lot of pieces of which to work here going forward for LA. They're great with Rob Blake at the helm there. Um, to me, I think they do need to have some kind of permanent solution. Again, this is into the offseason, what they do with their goaltending. I'm not sure Jonathan Quick can hold up. He's been okay, he's been great, but you need to somehow have a succession plan in mind for that. But that's not on their
Mm-hmm.
mind right now. On their mind is game 5, and they could make things very, very difficult on the Oilers. At the end of the day, though, McDavid, Draisaitl, Evander Kane, the hat trick. He's been unbelievable for the Oilers. Zach Hyman. We're starting to see that scoring up and down the lineup for the Oilers. It's not just McDavid. It's not just Draisaitl in every single play. The one thing
Yeah.
that would concern me is the Oilers' defense. Darnell Nurse to me doesn't seem quite right. He seems to be slow when he's in a battle there. One of the corner, he seems to have trouble getting that extra gear around the player. We'll see him because remember he missed the last part of the regular season with an injury. Duncan Keith to me, yeah, you know what? He's been in the playoffs. He's won a couple cups, but you know what? This is not the Duncan Keith, to be honest with you. What we saw 5 to 7 years ago in his
No.
prime, I don't even think he would be on the Oilers if this was 5 to 7 years ago. Because you'd be running right into that LA Chicago kind of heyday where they basically exchanged the cup between the two of them. Um,
Yeah.
but I think if you're LA, you have to keep it. You have to keep banging the Oilers defense against the boards. To some of those guys want nothing to do with the physicality on the back end. To me, Evan Bouchard has had like 5 or 6 assists. Has been one of the better Oilers defenders in the series. Mike Smith, to me, I haven't had a problem with him. He made that one mistake in game 1, trying to do a little bit too much, but that's something you just have to live with. I think if you're if you're the Oilers, then it's going to be a mistake. Mike Smith has rebounded nicely. Certainly wasn't the problem yesterday. The Oilers couldn't generate the front of the net. They made Jonathan Quick look a little bit better than he really should have been, and that's the beauty of hockey. We have a 2-2 series going back north of the border. I still think
Yep.
the Oilers win in 6 or 7 games.
Yep.
So really quickly, Rich, just on the way out, and thank you for sparing us about 25 minutes overtime because of the power outage that we had here earlier.
Yeah, I want to watch the second half of the first period of the Rangers Penguins. So hurry it up.
So I won't keep you too much longer. But is there anything that's kind of surprised you, or are we all kind of status quo? Or better yet, are you surprised at the number of goaltenders that teams have had to use to get through this first week of the playoffs?
No, it's injuries. I think it's the culmination of the season being compacted and just everybody playing basically every second night all the way through, and lots more back-to-backs, and just the goalies' bodies are the first ones to break down. I just think it's all part of that. I mean, you can't draw a direct line, right? You can't say for sure that's why that happens, but I think it's all a product of it. We've had more injuries this year than other years because of all of this. So it's going to affect the goalies, and now especially going into the playoffs and with the intensity and overtimes and everything else, games are longer. They tend to be too, and they're just more intense. So I'm not surprised by that. And actually, when you ask me, am I surprised by anything? No. Like I said, I could have picked the 4 teams that I picked in the East. I could have picked the other 4 to win in the same amount of games and not had a problem with that decision. So I'm not surprised by anything. It's been really good hockey for the most part. There've been some series, like I said, I'm not thrilled about the St. Louis, Minnesota game because I just don't like the way they play. That's just that style of game. But the series have been good. They've been compelling. They've been interesting. Like you're watching, you're hanging on the play and what's going on. And the talented players are allowed to play. They have to work a little bit at it. You got to find more space. And I've loved the fact that scoring is up. For playoff hockey, yeah, there've been some lower scoring games, but overall, I think I read in a couple of online periodicals today that playoff scoring so far in the first round this year after 4 games is up by 25% or 30% compared to any other playoff year. So it's been very good.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that. The only thing I will say on the way out,
Yeah.
on Wednesday night, the Manitoba Moose will host Game 3 of the Calder Cup Divisional Quarterfinals. You can catch that game on TSN 3. Games 3, 4, and if needed, 5. Go Moose, go Ice, go. They're up 2-0 heading to Moose Jaw for Game 3 tomorrow night in the second round of the WHL quarterfinals. We'll be back, semifinals, conference semifinals. So we'll be back to wrap all that up next Monday. Thank you for sticking with us through the power outage. Never had that happen before, but there's a first for everything in the history of the show. If we were on the radio, we wouldn't even be on right now. I'm just looking at the screen here. I did. I pitched all that in a quick second. For Red Petty, this is Michael Justin, and thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the hockey. We will see you as time goes on next Monday, hopefully setting up the conference semifinals, which are set to begin next week. For Red Petty, this is Michael Justin. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to all the interactions, Rob, Eric, Kat, and that's all of them. I'm just checking them on the way out here. But we didn't miss anybody. For Red Petty, this is Michael Justin. Thank you very much for watching. Good night from Winnipeg, and we'll talk to you next week. Good night.